right, take two in 2022, folks. Off to a great start. We thought we were live a few minutes before, only I forgot to press the go live button. And then so Terry got a chance to go Terry twice. Hit the music in the background. Welcome to 2022 in the Player's Edge podcast. Tonight, our special guest is Rosie Napravnik. Rosie, for the second time this evening, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. Our pleasure for sure. As usual, we have Terry Hollywood Hay. If you could see him dancing in the background before the show comes on, that would be make your night for sure. It's one of those things you can't unsee. Tom, we haven't seen Tom in a couple of weeks. Tom, how are you?
I'm doing okay.
And then Swiss Army Shawn, looking your best tonight. Shawn, what's happening?
Yeah, I'm a little nasal congested, tested positive for COVID, so isolated, so just better off doing audio. So save you guys all the hassle of seeing my face.
Yes, indeed. Maybe we'll keep it that way for the rest of the year. Anyway, just kidding. So, Rosie, I wanted to ask you a question. In a question and answer that we put up over at horseracingtoday.net, I asked you, what's the difference between you had said that you looked through the DRF, and I asked you about the difference between jockey and a horse player handicapping a race and a horse player who's trying to win the race. And you said the difference is the jockey and the horse player are trying to figure out who will win, and a jockey's trying to figure out how to make their horse the winner. Now, I have a question. Terry and I watch a ton of races, and so many times we're watching a race where one or maybe two horses break out to the lead, and they're on the lead maybe 2 or 3 lengths away from everybody, and based upon the class and conditions, they're going too fast. How does that happen?
So, that can be a couple of different scenarios, but one of the situations is, whether you're a jockey or a horse player, you're probably going to see the pace scenarios similarly on paper, and a couple of different things can happen. You have a clear-cut speed that is just going to go out and be on the lead, or a relatively straightforward pace scenario, and then you could have a race, which there's a couple of these that we're going to look at tonight that don't have much pace in them, and this can even happen in really big races where there's just either everybody has speed or nobody has speed. And so in a race where everyone has speed, everyone might be waiting to let the other guy go. And then you have no pace and you have rank horses. Or you've got a race with no pace at all. So everybody says, I'm going to be the one to go. And then you have everyone sending their horses out of the gate. And then you have rank horses. So those are two ways where you can get the horses into the race to where they become a little bit harder to rate. And then you might end up with a pace duel. But a lot of times, you either have a rider who's really unaware of what the pace is. Maybe it's an inexperienced rider. And, they may be pressing a pace that is just much faster than they realize. Or you have horses that are just not quite cooperating, really been put into the race mentally and a little harder to get back. So those are kind of a couple of situations where you could have, a duel on the front end that's not benefiting anybody. And, so a lot of times that one of the jockeys in the pace duel will be thinking to themselves, I've been in this situation plenty of times where it's like, my race is over and you're, in the first turn because, you've used too much horse. The horse is using himself too much. And you've got too much pressure. So, even though it doesn't make any sense to a horse player, a lot of times it's kind of an unavoidable at the time situation.
I've seen them where they go out by themselves like that, and it really makes me scratch my head. Is why would one person go out by themselves, run too fast? They're 3 or 4 lengths clear of the field. Why not just dial it back and maybe be a half a length in front of the field and run some better, slower fractions? But
in that case too, it could just be the type of the. There's always the fact of the matter that the rider's sort of unaware of how fast they're going or how much further in front they are than the field. And, they may be just paying close attention to how their horse is traveling. And if there's a horse that likes to travel freely, then, taking a hold of them to keep them closer to the field might actually take away from them. They're using too much energy to fight against you. So those are just some of the reasons you might see something weird that doesn't really seem to make any sense.
Mm-hmm. So Terry, how are you tonight? What makes sense to you?
Well, I'm pretty good. And Rosie, I want to tell you that I always loved it when you were on horses that I was betting. I've been betting on horses for over 50 years. Close to 60 actually. And I think you did a lot for the horse racing industry and for the women riders. I love it when I have a girl on a horse because I don't know if this is true, but I imagine that they have a more of an emotional connection with the horse than a male does. And it seems to me that they do pretty well. One of the questions I was wondering is, did you ever consider to go back to racing like Chantel Sutherland did, or is it just you decided that was it and it was over?
Yeah, I had never planned to go back to riding after I had my first son, and I know there was, I think it was a little bit hard for people to believe that I would go out when I did. And then, there was lots of wagering of if and when I would come back, even after I told everybody publicly that I wasn't planning on it. And then I had my second son, and people thought, well, she's just getting them both out of the way quickly, and then she's going to come back. But I never did have a plan to come back to riding. I will say I didn't originally plan to retire quite so early. I guess my husband and I kind of always just assumed, I'm like, probably when I'm 30, I'll retire and have kids. And we just ended up getting to a place where we were ready to, start a family together. And, I was kind of just ready to move on and do something different. And it was a little bit, it was not a little bit, but it was definitely a tough decision to stop when I did. But no regrets, and no, I was never planning to come back. So
How much did you collect on yourself on those bets on not coming back?
well, nothing, because people are still waiting.
Yeah, one of those endless bets. Tom, how about you tonight, my friend? What's happening in ice cold Chicago, where Tom and I both live, and it's Arctic outside. I saw some penguins walking down the street, Tom.
Yeah, well, I got a poodle who's not very happy about going outside, so it's been a challenge. Rosie, I was wondering, what surface did you prefer to ride on, and did you have a specific reason why you did that? And also, besides chasing the kids and the husband around, what are you doing now?
Well, to answer your first question, it depends on at what point in my career. When I was younger, in the beginning of my career, I really disliked riding on the turf, and that came down to the fact that I wasn't very good at it. And that was because, it was more crucial to be forwardly placed on the turf. It was, things sort of happen a little bit quicker on the turf. The turns are tighter, so it's a little bit harder to establish your position, and you might have to use a little bit more horse to get there. But it's so valuable to have good position on the turf most of the time that it was, it's worth using your horse to get there. So that was something that I just hadn't really gotten to that point where I was good at getting my horse out of the gate and getting into position. I was always more concerned conserving their energy. But I was putting myself at a disadvantage, giving my horse too much to do at the end. So I wasn't very good at it in the beginning of my career, but it turned out that once I got better at riding on the turf, that was definitely where I would prefer to ride, is on the turf. I love turf races. I got really good at it, got really good at handicapping and maneuvering the horses and knowing the track, knowing the tight turns really well. And it's just a really instinctual race to ride. Like, things happen so fast, you really have to things happen faster than you can think. So it's, your instincts are what are most important there. And I would say I probably preferred riding on the turf later in my career.
Shawn, I know you're not feeling well, but what are you up to?
Yeah, just hanging out. Rosie, about horses. And, you know, sometimes you look at these and certain jockeys get the most out of horses, and then other jockeys go on the horses and you get nothing out of them. Did you have a horse that responded to you that didn't respond to anybody else? And what was your favorite horse to ride?
That's such a crazy question. What was your favorite horse to ride? There's so many, and they're all so different. So, there's certain things that you like about different horses, and if you could mold them all into one of all your favorite traits of a horse, that would be the perfect horse. But as far as one that was kind of difficult to get along with, Untappable comes to mind. She was a really sensitive filly that was a little bit finicky, and Steve Asmussen was very particular about her and the way she would go in the morning when she breezed. I would usually breeze her like 1 or 2 works before she would run, and she was really difficult to breeze in the morning. She was very tough to get to the pole, and she liked to work fast. And in the afternoon, she was just really sensitive in her mouth. I remember she threw her head up one time, in what race was it? Maybe the Pocahontas, I want to say, at Churchill. In the first turn. I think it was her first time going long, actually. And I just put a tiny bit of pressure on her mouth, and she flew her head right back in my face. I had to just really let her go on a little bit and relax and settle. But when I got hurt, which was actually the last year that I rode, it was right after the Oaks. I got hurt, and Johnny B picked up the mount, and I was really kind of surprised and absolutely elated that Steve actually put me back on the filly once I recovered from my injury. But he thought that, it was really important that I rode the filly and that I just got along with her really well. And she was just a very sensitive type of female who knew exactly what she wanted. So I guess she and I understood each other really well.
Sounds like my daughter to a T, for sure. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about some racing at fairgrounds where you made your mark. We're going to do 3 races randomly selected by me from fairgrounds. So the first one we're going to do is race number 5 at the fairgrounds. It is a 6 furlong allowance, 46,000, non-winners of one lifetime. So, Rosie, with 6 furlongs, we had on track announcer John Dooley a couple of weeks ago. I think, was he our last guest of 2021? But he had mentioned at fairgrounds that everybody knows there's a front end bias. Would you say that there continues to be a front end bias? And what would you look for in a 6 furlong race here?
Yeah, there's probably a little bit of a front end bias at the fairgrounds. And the one thing too, though, is the fairgrounds has a really, really, really long stretch. Mm-hmm. So that's where a closer can eventually benefit from the really long stretch, because a lot of them don't really get going until they turn for home. So you got a really long straightaway. It's a super long stretch at the fairgrounds. But this is, in this race, you've got kind of one horse who is really the main speed, the 3 Creole Charlie. And so you'd expect this horse definitely out on the front end. And with James Graham, I don't really see much other speed in here in this race. I think this horse is probably, he's not he's stepping up in class for sure. But I think with the way the race sets up, and here's one of the races I was talking about earlier, is that there's just not much speed in here. I don't think anybody's going to be able to go with this horse, so I don't see him getting much pressure. But I think the horse on the outside, Crompton, would be the horse to lay second. Juan Vargas is I would say, can be kind of aggressive. Actually, he actually worked for Joe and I a few years back, and he was an aggressive work rider. But I think this horse could lay second from the outside, have kind of a clear trip. So I believe I put the 3, 6, and the 5. 5 horse is probably not going to be able to go with these two on the front end. But, there's not much to come and get him.
Terry's usually the one that agrees with the guest the most, but in a few minutes we're going to find out that might not be true. Terry, who do you like? Maybe if you muted yourself, we would know.
Yep, you got to do that.
There you go.
Yeah, I like the number 3 Creole Charlie. Has won 2 races out of the last 3 races, and of course is the speed of the race. It's been proving his speed rating in each of the last 3 races. He has a good workout, 4 furlongs on November 16th at Fairgrounds, 49.2 breezing. He was the 7th best out of 24 workouts that day, and his best dirt speed is fastest among today's starters. Then I like number 2 Touchdown Joe. He has done well in his only 2 starts at the Fairgrounds, finishing 3rd, and then winning his last start at today's distance. And then I like number 6 Crompton. After almost a 3-month layoff or break, he ran 2nd at the Fairgrounds, and he had a workout on December 27th, 49.1. He was the 39th best workout out of 103 in preparation for this race. And then number 5, Janet's JJ, has finished in the money 6 out of the last 7 races, improving the speed number in each of the last 3 races, and he has a good trainer and jockey.
Shawn, you like to do the trip handicapping with the speed, no speed, that sort of stuff. What do you see?
Yeah, I agree with Rosie. I don't see any other speed besides the number 3. So in a 6-horse field with the only speed being the 3, I went with the 3 on the top easily. Has won 2 of his last 3 races. And then I did go with the number 6 Crompton for 2nd, the least experienced horse in the field, but has a win in a 2nd in his only 2 starts on dirt. And Juan Vargas, not a good percentage jockey, but has ridden this horse in every race, so there's some familiarity there. And then 3rd went with number 2 Touchdown Joe. One last race to break his maiden at Fairgrounds, and it was the first time Kobe Hernandez was aboard. Can show some speed. Maybe this is the one to track the morning line favorite. I think that'd be the only shot, or if he gets 3rd, it would just be coming from behind. So 3-6-2.
3-6-2 for you. And then, Tom, there's really not a whole lot of value in this race in terms of odds, so I can't expect that you're going to come with anything out of left field like Tom tends to do. You kind of got that Mission Impossible look tonight, by the way.
No, well, you never know, right?
Yes, but a little bit of Tom Cruise instead of Tom freezing Tom.
Well, I'll go with freezing. There's not. I went 3-6-5 as Rosie did. I'll add in on the 3 Creole Charlie. The trainer's numbers. First off, the claim is 42% winning. From 7 starters, that's pretty good. But there's 0 value in playing him in my mind, and this is a pass race for me. Comptran was my next choice. The only negative I really found was the trainer has no wins in the meet, and when the jockey and trainer are paired up, they have 11 starters and no wins the last 60 days. So that's win, maybe no, but getting in the money, I've got a good chance. Janet's JJ, this is a horse where I don't think they know what to run it at the moment. They've tried sprints, they've tried distance, 2 turns, and it's a
turf race in there too.
Yeah, and it's placed 7 times. So, so I think they need to see what they got first, and that maybe this is what it is, and this would it may just pop in there and pay a little bit better than some of these than our chalky favorite is.
Yeah, I looked at the times for these horses at 6 furlongs and basically came away with the 3 horse has the best time in the 6 furlong race, and then the 6 and the 5 are basically a tie. They're also tied in the odds, but I did like the fact that the 6 horse Chompton does show a little bit more. I think showed more in that last race than the 5 horse did. So I am expecting to see some improvement in round 2 off the bench. And then I ended it up with Touchdown Joe. So I went 3, 6, 5, and 2. And that brings us then to race number 6, I believe, which is 1 mile on the turf. And I wanted to get a little bit of a different type of races, short ones, long ones, on turf, claiming. I stayed away from the maiden races though. But when you look at 1 mile on the turf, Rosie, when you're if you from a jockey's perspective and from a handicapper's perspective, what kind of horses should we be looking for?
Well, a mile on the turf is definitely a race where I would probably prefer to be on a front runner. They kind of skip across the turf. It's a shorter 2-turn race. So you can have those horses that have a little bit of speed that'll hang on there, whereas the closers are barely going to get there going a mile, like your typical, strong closer on the turf. I think, they have a tendency to have a tougher time with the mile. And luckily, again, for a closer, you've got a long stretch at the fairgrounds at least. This race is another one where there is just really not a lot of speed in here.
Mm-hmm.
The one horse that I would say has the most speed is the horse coming off of sprints. Twirling Roses, the 3, has Loveberry on him, who's not even a speed rider. But this horse could maybe fall out of there and be on the lead by default. There's not even a horse that, loves to stalk. That looks, like they're a clear choice for pace in here. I actually ended up, I guess I would say the 8 horse could go from the outside. I think it's a live horse. You have Brittany Russell trained at 26% last year, 15% dirt to turf. And, this horse is improved last time out and kind of had a stalking trip. So, coming from the outside, this horse could get position laying off of that default speed, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have the 8 horse actually picked second.
Mm-hmm.
I had the 6 horses who I picked on top. I think, looks like really moved forward going into Maker's Barn last out. Boosted the horse's confidence. That's definitely a factor, I would say. And, running at this level, I think could really run well again. Pedroza is a pretty forwardly placed rider, I would say. So, I mean, this horse could be involved in the pace just because of the rider and the lack of speed. It's not a real speed horse, but you might find him up there close. And then go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm just shaking my head.
And then the Ron Fauché horse, Smoky Harbor, is who I had picked third. Ron is 30% second off of 45 to 180 days. He's been winning at 20% for 2021. And this horse has dropped in class off the layoff last time out and stays at the level where he ran really well.
I like that horse as well, the 7 horse. Shawn, who are you going to start this race with?
I'm going to go with the number 8, Clear Humor. I saw 2 speed horses in here. Number 2, Go Speed Racer Go, and number 8, Clear Humor. Clear Humor, though, only had 1 race on turf, and he wasn't near the lead at all. So I would hope the horse changes tactics here. Might have more success this time. Trainer Brittany Russell hits at 33% in claiming races, gets James Graham for the first time. And then I went number 7, Smoky Harbor. Second race after a layoff, like Rosie said. Has a nice workout in between races as well, and has finished in the trifecta in half of his career races. Turf races, 4 of 8, winning 2 of them. And then for third, I went with a long shot. It was really hard to even pick a third horse here, but I went number 9, East Lex. Has put back-to-back good races together, moves up in class, but can definitely add value if he performs well again, and has been in the trifecta in 4 of 6 career races at fairgrounds.
Tom, here's an opportunity maybe to get more value.
No.
You got a New Year's resolution? No long shots anymore for Tom?
No. Had a nice one today, but not complaining. Clear Humor, number 8, was my top choice. I think that is the front runner. But here's an interesting thing. This horse has never drawn an outside post. So it's going to be interesting to see how it comes out of the 8 hole when James Graham does, how he places the horse early. with that first turn coming up pretty quick.
Mhm.
And, it won a maiden claimer at Saratoga against New York State breds. Probably belongs against New York State breds, but that's okay. Can run in here. It'll be interesting to see how James Graham rides this race, because I think that will make all the difference for this horse. And I went with number 4, the Duke of Carhan is my second choice. It's Mark Casse horse, dropping from 40 at Woodbine down to 30. Missed by a nose, been running on the all-weather up there, has some turf built chimes too. Good speed numbers. This is second off the layoff, so I always like that angle. It ran in October, so it's quickly, they're turning it around, getting it down and up. And, it has had a little bit of adventures in some of its races at the starting gate, and so that always concerns me. But I think Cassie's going to lose this horse. Yeah, I think there's going to be more than one claim in there, so there's going to be interest in this horse, and it'll be interesting to see how well it runs in this race. Smoky Harbor, number 7. Yeah, it was interesting off the layoff. He was able to overcome issues in that race and still get up for second. He was the favorite in that race. And, he's tried this distance 7 times and won twice, which is always good to see. And its wins are around 2 turns. So, or not, I should say not, so that he should be able to handle that without any too much trouble. When you look at his record, he really doesn't run bad races. He just doesn't win enough.
Well, that's the name of the game.
Really
yeah.
No, that's why I don't have him first.
Who do you got first, Terry?
Well, I have number 8, Clear Humor, is first. After winning his last race at Laurel, comes in to try the fairgrounds. He drops in class today, and the trainer wins 33% of the claiming races he enters his horses in. He has the highest speed figure at today's distance, and his best turf speed is fastest among today's starters. Then I like the number 1A in the entry, Policy Option. Finished third in his first race at the fairgrounds after experiencing trouble. He has 2 bullet workouts in a row, and he's coupled with Empty Holster, who finished second in his last 2 races, and he's trying the fairgrounds for the first time. Then I like number 4, Duke of Carthenia. Has done well at fairgrounds, finishing the money 2 out of 3 times, winning one of those races. He finished second at Woodbine, beaten only a nose, and received the highest last speed rating while doing that. And he is dropping in class today and has a good workout on December 31st of 48.4 breezing, 18 best out of 114 workouts. And then I like number 2, Go Speed Racer Go. Won his first race at the fairgrounds by a head on the turf, and he can run either on top or come from behind, which is an angle I like.
I like Duke of Carthenia to be up top, second off a layoff, coming in from Woodbine. I don't think that's a negative, probably a good positive. Ran well on turf, ran well on all weather, both good indicators for a turf race. And that last late pace number just pops off the board to me. Number 7, Smoky Harbor, is yet another that's coming off the second time off the bench, an angle that I like. His resume says expect some improvement there. Does have a nice little workout since the last time he ran, which I always like to see. Was the favorite, though, last time and failed. And that's one of the things that Terry and I really have found is working pretty well for us, is horses that were bet down, that missed, the odds go up next race, and then they fire. So the bettors are just off one. I'm also on the consensus horse here, Clear Humor. And I also like what I wrote down as the Terry angle with the one entry, because Terry always says that when the trainer scratches one, he knows which one or she knows which one to scratch. And the one that's left is the one that Terry thinks is going to do well. And we know that one of these 2 horses is going to scratch because Mitchell Murrow is listed as the jockey on both. So one of them is going to scratch. The one that's left is the one that trainer Hugo Rodriguez thinks is going to win this race, Terry. How do you like that? We just dubbed it the Terry angle.
That's right. That's a good angle. I see it happening all the time. And a lot of times that other horse that's not scratched wins that race.
Mm-hmm. It does happen a lot. I've seen Terry pull that one off quite a bit. And then finally, our last race for today is an optional claiming 17,500, 175 would have been a bigger race. Race 7, 1 mile and a 16th on the main track. So we went from a sprint on the main track to a route on the turf to a route on the main track. Rosie, when you're running a route on the main track, what's the game plan there?
Well, like I said, in the later years of my career, I think no matter what race I was riding, one of the important aspects was getting a good position, and that's definitely, uh, plays a big part when you're going long on the dirt. Um, I loved my favorite race ride was like a tactical position, long on the dirt or long on the turf. But if I was riding a dirt race, a lot of times it's the better horses that are going 2 turns on the dirt and sitting in a tactical position like, second, third, fourth. Now we've got another short field here, so that's barely tactical.
Mm-hmm. Well, no matter
But-
what, you're going to be third or fourth, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you better be tactical, otherwise you're really behind the ball. I in this race I really liked the 4, and one of the things that I just liked about this horse is its consistency. It's 8 for 11 in the money, and just really seems like it puts out every time. It's kind of a tactical horse. It's been on the lead, but can stalk and kind of looks like it just tries every time. It's run on the turf, run on the dirt, um, and equally runs, just as well each time, really. So I really like the 4, consistent numbers, consistent horse. I went 4-3. The 3, I think, coming off the last race, I think this horse will be better with a horse to chase. Um, the horse could have got possibly just, lost its confidence when it got headed last out. So I think we'll have the one horse come from the rail, might show some speed. It's not a ton of fast horses in this race either, but Mitchell Murrell on the rail, I would expect that horse to show some speed. And maybe Humbrazo can sit off. But Deshaun Parker, a really smart rider. This one again too, though, 4 for 20 lifetime, and 12 out of 20 in the money. So another consistent horse that definitely puts out, but I think hopefully a little bit better with something to chase. 4-3-5, like Perfect Cut. This horse is cutting back in distance and dropping in class, which I think will help him. Last time out was, going 1.25 miles at Churchill, 5 wide around both turns. And, obviously the distance, I'm sure, was not helping him in that fact. But 31 to 60 days on this trainer is only 12%. But, the horse, I think the class drop's going to help him a lot. But this definitely seems like the type of race where he could sit a good trip coming from the outside, and probably be right there.
Who do you think is going to be there, Tom? This is now your chance to go for a little bit of odds, and you're on mute, so make sure you're. There you go.
I'm not on mute.
Not anymore.
Yeah, no.
I know. It's going to be just a real pain in 2022. That's my
somebody has
resolution.
Somebody has to do it. Electric cattle prods at each of our chairs may be also necessary. You never know.
No, you never know.
I took 5. Perfect Cut as my top choice. Comes off a 1.25 mile race that if you watch that race, it was very strange, to say the least, because it made a move in the middle and then had 0 left at the end. The works coming in, I think, are good. I think the drop is good enough to beat this field. But my big negative is it's never won around 2 turns. It's only won at 1 mile and 1 turn, both at Gulfstream and at Churchill. Mm-hmm. So that's my big concern there. 4 Scarlet Fusion is a frustrating horse if I owned it. 1 win and it's on the turf. And I would be more frustrated is why is the morning line favorite? Because it loves to place, did 7 times, but doesn't win. Mm-hmm. And, last 3 races are good, but again, it doesn't win. 2 turns is okay. Distance is fine, but I think in the money is probably where you have to look at this horse to run. Humbrazo, number 3 is my final selection. Claimed 2 back for a new trainer, and they tried to run it on the front end, and frankly didn't have enough at the end. That's not a bad thing. I mean, give it a try and see what happens. There's also another race where they ran closer to the pace with this horse, and it fared pretty well. It's won at this distance, going on 2 turns once. He's won once, and he's on 6 tries, and he's placed 3 times in this at this distance. So, if the new trainer has got him placed correctly, I think I'll have a chance.
And then you, Terry, who do you have? Who are you giving the best chance to in race number 7 at Fairgrounds on Saturday?
Well, I like number 3, Humbrazo. Finished 3rd versus similar in the last race at the Fairgrounds. And he can handle the distance, finishing in the money in 4 of the races out of 6 times running this distance. And he's got the best dirt speed among today's starters, tied with 1 other horse. And he also has a good workout on December 30th of 101 breezing for 5 furlongs. And then I like number 4, Scarlet Fusion. Has finished 7 out of 8 times in the money during this year, winning 1 of those races, here in the highest last speed rating, and has one of the best dirt speeds among today's starters. He's actually tied with the 3. And then I like number 6, Luckenbacher. I think he'll improve while returning to the dirt, where he seems to do a lot better. He likes the track, finishing 2 out of 3 times in the money. And he finished 100% of the time in the money at today's distance and won 40% of those races. And then I like number 1, Cable Toss. He's won 25% of the starts this year and likes the distance, finishing in the money 4 out of 8 races, and he won 2 of those races.
Shawn, you get to make your picks now, friend. What do you like here?
So I saw the speed with the 3 inside horses. I went with number 3, Humbrazo. You get the outside of the 3 speed horses, plus you get the best jockey in Shawn Parker. Tries Fairground for the 2nd straight race, same distance, get Parker again. This time might be able to clear for the lead. Had a really good workout after the last race. And then I went number 4, Scarlet Fusion for 2nd. I agree with Rosie that this is a very consistent horse. And then I agree with Tom that this horse just doesn't win. So it's going to be hard to take it 8-5. Could benefit from a speed duel if the 3 inside horses go and the 4 sits right on the outside. And then 3rd, I went number 2, Editor-in-Chief. Least experienced horse in the field with only 5 career starts. Is dropping in class and returning to dirt. The only problem has been off for 9 months with just okay workout. So, again, that'd be hard to take at a low price.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to go with a little bit of a price. I'm going to be the Tom of 2022. I'm going to go with Luckenbacher, number 6 on the top of my picks. The horse is coming off the bench. And if you look back at the last 2 races where the horse hit the track fresh, the horse finished first last time out. And the time before that at Fairgrounds, finished at 2nd by a head. So the last 2 times the horse came off the bench, off the sidelines, just a head away from being undefeated in 2. I like Scarlet Fusion to be the 2nd place horse, like you've mentioned. Horse just doesn't seem to want to win, but it doesn't want to run out of the money either. And then the 3 horse Humbrazo. I like Humbrazo because the inside 3 horses, as you mentioned, Shawn, are the speed horses. But when you look at those early pace numbers and the fractions, it looks to me like the 3 is the speed of the speed. So I'm going to go 6, 4, and 3 to wrap up our picks for Saturday afternoon. Rosie, we 100% appreciate you coming on today. If folks want to keep up with you, how do they follow you?
Well, I guess I'm most active on Facebook at the moment. I'll have to think of what my Facebook handle is, but it's Off Track Sport Horses is the name of my business where I restart horses transitioning into second careers.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I grew up in pony club and eventing, and that was sort of my first career when I was a kid. And so since I've retired, I've really, had a passion for restarting and repurposing retired racehorses. And I've restarted many, many horses and continue to learn with each one of them. And right now I have actually a barn full of horses that are actually owned by their racing owners still. So we're really bridging the gap between the racing world and the sport horse world as far as aftercare for these horses after they're retired from racing, and so really enjoying that. It's just as much a passion for me today as racing was when I was riding. So really enjoying that. You can follow on Rosie Napravnik Off Track Sport Horses on Facebook, and my website is rosieofftrack.com. I have Instagram, but I don't really use it that much because I'm apparently showing my age. I'm an old Facebooker, is what I've learned.
Well, Terry's still on MySpace, so don't worry about him.
Oh, well, there you go. And that makes me feel young.
For sure. Well, it's good to hear that you're doing stuff with the horses post their career, because I think one of the misconceptions in our industry is that many people don't realize how much the people in the sport actually care about the horses. Tom, tomorrow you and I are going to be doing Foreign Fridays, as Terry calls them. Where are we going to do our selections at?
We're going to be south of Brisbane in Australia and the Gold Coast. And we're going to look at some of the Magic Million races that are going to be run this weekend and next weekend. They run some pretty good races and interesting types of races. One of them that we're doing a cover is the Country Cup, and this is for horses that are running provincial tracks, not at the big tracks, and this gives them an opportunity to run for more money. So kind of an interesting spin differently than we do it here. So it'll be interesting to take a look at this. And the weather definitely is warmer there.
For sure. Summertime down there for sure. Shawn, it looks like you got something to say.
No, I was just ready to Facebook and Twitter add Horse Race Today.
Oh, yes. I forgot to put that on the bottom. Yes. If you like what you saw today, folks, please subscribe on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. Follow us on Facebook at Horse Race. The number 2 today. Rosie, once again, we very grateful for you joining us. Our pleasure for sure.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Yes.
And then, of course, we hope, as always, that all of our picks for Saturday and that all of your life activities, Terry, end up in the
winner's circle.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Rosie. Have a great night.
Have a good night, guys.
Thank you.